All right, let's call to order the regular council meeting here on Monday, June 19th at 6:45 p.m. We are at the WC O'Neill Arena Complex Chambers. This will be streamed through Zoom and Facebook. If anyone has any questions to anything pertaining to the agenda this evening, please email pnopper@townofstandrews.ca. Mr. Nopper will make sure to put that on our Facebook feed so people know the correct spelling of St. Andrews being ST versus SAINT. Recording of attendance, all members of council are here with the exception of Councillor Blanchard. And we do want to recognize that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Beskoto Mugati people. Approval of agenda, I'll be looking for a mover for this agenda. I've got Councillor Harland and seconded by Councillor Hurdle. Any changes to the agenda? I do myself have a couple. Mine are going to actually fall under new business. I would like to talk to you about the RSC's strategic plan, so the Regional Service Commission's strategic plans, and as well just a quick conversation on the summer meeting schedule. I'll be looking for a mover to accept those two new items under new business. Got Councillor Harlan and Deputy Mayor Akaji. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. The amendment has been accepted, and now we will vote on the agenda. All in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye. Agenda is now approved. Any conflict of interest this evening? Okay, seeing none. So we are going to get into some presentations. The order is going to be a little different. I understand our first presenter, unfortunately, is... Oh, he is here. Sorry. After some computer difficulties, it's good to have Mr. Eddie Oldfield on Zoom. He's the senior lead for projects, Quest Canada. Presentation, Smart Energy Communities Accelerator Program for the town of St. Andrews. So I'll pass the floor over to Mr. Oldfield.
Eddie, can you turn on your camera and your microphone? You have the floor to council.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you. With after having solved some major technical difficulties on my side, appreciate your patience. I'm here today to speak to you about the work we have done with the town of St. Andrews as part of our Smart Energy Community Accelerator program. Really the results of 2.5 years of work and next steps. I'll share my screen, and I hope that the PowerPoint has made its way to your hands. I'm going to run through 10 slides here roughly, or in 10 minutes, run through the slides that I have to present some of the results. I won't be able to get into all the details as there's quite a bit of work done. This program was launched in September 2020 with funding from ACOA, the province of New Brunswick, and our energy utilities. We worked with 14 communities to help them develop and implement community energy and emissions plans and to understand the economic benefits that can come from implementing those plans. We've just been granted an extension to the program for yet another year, where we will continue to work with the existing communities and intake at least 6 more communities in the new cohort this year. These are the 14 communities that were part of the pilot program, including the town of St. Andrews. And each one of these communities received a tailored accelerator plan, which outlined the services and the timeline and the level of effort expected over the course of the program. As part of that accelerator program, you would have seen something like this, a Gantt chart that outlined those services. And I'll step through a few of these to show you the results from our work with town of St. Andrews. So some of you will already be familiar, having participated in our workshops. But essentially, it's the delivery of those services over the course of the program, along with some services that are throughout the program, such as our monthly working group meetings. The very first thing we did with the communities in the program was to understand where they are strong, where the areas of improvement are based on Canadian best practices for community energy and emissions planning. And we use a tool called the Smart Energy Communities Benchmark tool that looks at what is in place. We look for evidence in all of your municipal plans, policies, and bylaws. We interview the utilities, the private sector, the public sector, and we look for what things are in place in a community across 10 different indicators, from land use to buildings and from financials to staff capacity. The results for the town of St. Andrews show that in 2021, when we first did the benchmark assessment, a score of 51% overall. It's important to note that this tool is intended as a tool for continuous improvement. It's meant to compare yourself against yourself over time and not compare yourself to other communities. Essentially, we saw an improvement in the overall score, up to 70%. I think you were the second place runner-up to the community that achieved the highest in percentage increase, which was Town of Oromocto at 20%. But both of those communities we felt were not as far ahead as some of the other communities we worked with. And you can see some relative improvements in the different indicators. I cannot go into details today because of the time constraints, but I'd be happy to do so offline. And your staff, of course, already know a lot of the details in these two reports. To look at what other communities scored at, you'll see notable improvements. What we were looking for was an average increase of 10 to 15%, and I think we achieved that through the program itself. We hope that these scores continue to improve. Of course, the low-hanging fruit are no longer there, so it gets harder and harder as you go. The development workshop included two different exercises. One was an energy mapping exercise to do some blue sky thinking around what was possible. And the second was an action planning exercise, which was a deep dive into all the measures to develop a strategy. Some pictures from some of the mapping exercises that we do. This is the Town of St. Andrews exercise, which we did virtually as a result of COVID. So participants would have participated on this map and identified areas of opportunity for energy efficiency, waste energy, renewable power, land use planning, transportation, and district energy. And so all of that gets captured into a report and summarizes what those opportunities are for the Town of St. Andrews. A lot of text on this slide. I know I just tried to summarize those high-level bullets of what were the opportunities identified, but the full report is linked from that file. We then dove into the action planning exercise, which then prioritized the different measures and assigned them to various different leads, looked at whether or not they needed further funding or further study, and assigned a time frame for those. I've just listed some of the high priority actions that were identified through that process, notably energy efficiency improvements in the built environment, looking at building code bylaws for minimum energy performance standards, looking at the feasibility of various other renewable energy opportunities in the community, and as well as active transport networks. There were also medium and low priority actions identified, and this is all contained within a summary report from that work. We followed up with a second workshop focusing on implementation, and that included 3 exercises. One on governance, looking at how to make sure that there's continuity and sustainability of this plan. One was on community engagement strategies, and the other was on collecting information or data for measuring impact, so key performance indicators. Again, a lot of text on this slide summarizing the results that are in that report. And these reports qualify you for recognition in the Partners for Climate Protection program under the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for milestones 3 and 4. For governance, there was some interest in a regional approach and building capacity in-house and having a committee assigned to this file. Community engagement involved a number of different variety of methods to engage with the community, and data collection identified certain tools and certain KPIs or key performance indicators to measure over time. We also did an economic impact assessment of your plan based on the targets that were set and based on an analysis of average energy spending in your community every year. We were able to determine that if your plan is fully implemented at today's energy prices, which was, I think, 2022, up to $2.78 million could remain in the community per year. And these are dollars not being spent on upstream energy generators, distributors, and transmitters. We did an analysis of 8 case studies in the province of New Brunswick, looking at the economic impact, and extrapolated what that would mean if all the New Brunswick municipalities implemented their community energy and emissions plans. This is also a requirement under the Provincial Climate Change Plan. And that assessment resulted in a range of anywhere between 5,600 and 160,000 jobs. Understanding, of course, the range is due to the fact of some uncertainties with targets, fuel prices, carbon taxes, and so on. Still not an insignificant number, and will probably land somewhere in the middle. We also ran a series of working group sessions and training webinars. We published success stories in all the communities that we worked with, including St. Andrews. And we also offered a planning course for planning professionals to incorporate energy in their planning practice. So for next steps, I will continue to work with the town of St. Andrews to make sure that you get milestone recognition in the FCM Partners for Climate Protection. We'll be taking some time to review the reports that were created post municipal reform to ensure that they're adjusted to the local context, continue to collaborate with town staff, and publish success stories and have monthly working group sessions. I'll be reaching out over the coming weeks to arrange a meeting with your staff and get a work plan together for this coming year. Thank you. I hope I didn't go too far over time.
No, thank you for how many slides that was. It was very efficient, actually. So thank you for that. So I noted that really the next steps for this is so we have a motion to approve it, but when do we anticipate Shamcook Bayside being incorporated within this plan? Meaning, should we accept this plan or should we wait until we have the one for the entire community?
That's an excellent question. It is entirely up to you. I would suggest this year, if we have an engagement session where we can include Shamcook Bay, then you could wait till the end of the year to approve submitting to FCM for milestone recognition. I think that the changes that you will see is simply an extension of some of the measures that were selected. There might need to be some revision to, things like community engagement strategies, but I don't expect there will be any major changes, more of a growth of the plan as it exists today.
All right, and then I guess I'll open up to all council, but when I get into the Appendix 1, the summary of prioritized actions, it says that high priority actions are detailed below to start by 2022, 2023. Do we feel that that's too tight of a time frame, being the fact that we're actually, at this point, almost halfway through 2023?
If that's a question for me, I would say, yeah, you might want to shift everything over by a little bit as COVID and municipal reform both had an impact on those timeframes.
Perfect. And I know when we get into the kind of the detailed actions, high priority actions, you'd like to see them achieve, but I looked at, like, for example, increasing the number of EV charging stations. I think we're really dependent on other level of government support for that, right? Like if we start putting in charging stations ourselves, those are some significant bills for the municipality. We have partnered with NB Power in the past to get some in the community, but I assume, even though that's a middle priority one, I assume that all these are a little bit flexible to implementation around opportunities with funding partners.
Absolutely. You should take that flexible approach. If something's working really well or there's an opportunity for an incentive program, I'd say take advantage of that. If you need to shift things a little bit later because some supports are not in place, that's absolutely up to you as a council. I would suggest having an annual report to council with some priorities being set based on what you see.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll limit myself to 3 questions. Any other member of council? Mr. Knob or Mr. Spear?
Thank you, Worship. I guess my recommendation would be maybe that we have the report sent to the Environmental Action Committee, and that staff during the budget process will collaborate with them to try to identify some achievables, maybe the next budget year, things that are, as Mr. Oldfield said, low-hanging fruit with little cost and minimal effort, not others that are going to require either studies or some investment by council to achieve, and maybe by mid to late September, early October, we can come back with kind of a 2024 action plan on achieving some of those recommendations.
That does make a lot of sense, for sure. So a lot of these would be part of budget discussions, which we're happy to have back within this table. Council, anyone else? Councillor Harlan.
Thank you for the presentation. It was great. I just wonder about the engagement session for Shamcook and Bayside. What are you looking at in terms of time frame, and what would that engagement session involve? What are you looking for?
Okay, super. So the first thing I would like to do is in the early fall, probably September timeframe, is to hold a virtual session where we will review the work that's done to date. More specifically, we're going to look at the energy map, which will have that expanded territory. And we're going to look at the decisions that were made around the measures in the plan and the governance of that plan and so on. So it's more of a revision. Then we might come back into an in-person session with members of the community. It really depends on how that first session goes, but that review session should be somewhere between 3 to 5 hours. So, plan on half a day, essentially, where we would invite people to come on virtually for an interactive review session.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
I think
members?
that was a part an answer, and then the next part, of course, is we follow up with a report based on that report.
Good. Okay, anyone else? All right, I just want to say thanks as well for the presentation. It's all good when we set greenhouse gas emission mitigation plan reduction by 30%, but without having the plan of how we get there, it's just a feels good number, and the fact that we're building a plan to help achieve that result for this community. I just wanted to say thank you very much for letting us be part of, I guess you could say, the entry municipalities into this project, and we look forward to working with you over the next year. So thanks for presenting to us, and have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Mayor and Council.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next presentation, we are going to transition to Tressa Bevington, who is with Compass Housing Incorporated. It is the presentation on building colors for 302 Mowat Drive, which is, as a lot of people in the community know it, the 42-unit apartment complex. Is Mrs. Bevington online, Mr. Knopper?
Yes, Ms. Bevington is online. Just give me a second, Your Worship. Ms. Bevington, can you turn on your camera? Your mic?
Okay, you can hear me now.
Yes.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present tonight. Paul, does everyone have the two options in front of them?
Yes, the two options were sent to them by email, but we'll pull up a couple of the options here for review by council.
Okay, that'd be great. So I just wanted to present to you tonight, as we work through with the development agreement, we did want to give council, because of the support of the project and working together collaboratively on the project, options on what the colors are and how the outside of that would look. So those are the two options in front of you. We worked with our designers and really took the feedback during the proposal process of the building. We picked very traditional colors that will really complement the surrounding neighbors and the community. As you'll see on it, when you're looking at the colors, there are two different options. One thing I just really want to point out too is the other details that we've put into the building, such as in front of the 3 doors that are on the main part of the building where people will be entering. We'll be having stone on the front of that to cover that area. We've also worked on the look of the decks. Every apartment will have a patio or deck, which is a really great plus when you're renting these apartments. Yeah, so I just wanted to hear the feedback, and I really wanted to see which option council would recommend that we move forward with. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
All right, council, I'll open the floor up to you. Is there any questions? You've got the two different renderings in front of you. All right. So I guess it comes down to trying to get are you looking for consensus from council or just feedback? Would you like me to find out which option council prefers?
I would like that, and that's in our development agreement that council gets to do this. So if they want to give an opinion, we'd love to hear it. If they want to get a consensus, then we're open to that as well.
Okay. Also, if you've got no questions or comments, I'd get consensus at this point. I guess some early thoughts or comments. Councilor Harlan.
My preference is definitely the one that I'm looking at on the left.
Me too.
Hands down for me.
That little.
Sorry, I didn't catch the first part. What did you say?
I said my preference definitely is the one on the left. My left. I'm looking at the screen. The
Great.
one with the.
With gray corners.
It's the one with the gray corners.
Gray corners.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's lovely.
Yeah. I like
Thank
that.
you.
That's my preference as well, Your Worship.
Just a quick show of hands if you prefer the one on the left. Just out of curiosity, the one on the right? I'm an oddball, I think, here. But I'm overruled. No, I appreciate that. I will say that no matter what option, the original, and I know that Mrs. Bevington just used it as part of the presentation, but these are a lot more visually appealing than the ones that was in the original presentation that was put out to the
Yes.
public. I think it was blue on blue, if I recall.
Yeah.
So the fact that council's fairly quiet means that they like what they see. So great job. And I will say for anyone that would like to see a more elaborate design, it's important to know that this is targeted as an affordable project. Rents are locked in at prices $1,200 for 2-bedroom, $800 for 1. And the more you add detail on the outside, the more that is not achievable or obtainable. And we know that interest rates continue to go up in Canada right now. So the fact that Compass Housing was able to come with 2 renderings that council doesn't seem to have any major objections to, I would say excellent job, Mrs. Bevington, and thank you very much for joining us. Was there anything else you wanted to run by council? Are you good?
I just wanted to say thank you for their continued support. And I just wanted to mention, based off what you said, if anyone does have an opinion of the look of the building, we are really trying to make it seamlessly fit into the neighborhood. And we're very excited to show you the inside of the building as well. And people are going to be really proud to call them their home. So we're just really, really excited for the next phase. But this was fun to present to you guys. And thank you so much for your excellent feedback.
I will say, based on what council's heard, you're not going to have any problem filling that particular building. I know of countless businesses and individuals that are asking how can they get a place there. So thank you very much for your continued partnership to make affordable housing in St. Andrews. So we'll move to the next one. Speaking of housing, we have Rick Turner and Chris Evans will be joining us. They're doing the presentation on the updated Evans Land Development Limited, which a lot of people know as the Bar Road and Mowat Drive. So not sure if both gentlemen or if just one's on, but the floor is theirs. Okay, perfect.
Mr. Turner, can you please turn on your camera and microphone?
I'm unmuted now, I believe.
You are.
Okay, your worship, members of council. My name is Rick Turner with Hughes Surveys, presenting on behalf of Evans Land Development. Since it last appeared before council, we've reflected on council's desire to have us focus on affordable rentals as much as possible. In order to achieve the maximum level of affordability, we found that rezoning is the optimum way to achieve that by increasing the density of the development. At the same time, we're looking to try to keep the buildings in scale and not out of context with the size and mass of other buildings in around St. Andrews in the area. So it's working with these principles. We propose multi-residential building sites with a cluster of 3 or 4 buildings on each site. And the 3 or 4 buildings, the intention there is to create more of a campus-like appearance rather than one very large building on each site that we didn't feel would fit into the neighborhood where we're located towards the edge of town. Our marketing focus will be affordable rental units expected to be occupied by residents both existing and new to the community. People who can contribute to the town's workforce. The units will consist of bachelor, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom units. Many of the units will be marketed to seniors who have a desire to downsize and stay within the community. Ground floor units will be designed to easily accommodate individuals with special needs. That'll be looked after in the design and construction, and they'll be built accordingly. Right now, we're certainly in the early stages of determining development costs, and we would welcome council's financial support in order for us to maximize the affordability of rents, as has been done with other projects. It's still too early for us to determine what that ask might be, but we'll continue to work with staff to see what can be worked out, working within your present or your next budget year. We've located the access directly across from Bar Road. If we could put the site plan up again. This was suggested by the planners, and it's certainly a good way for the proposal to proceed. Mr. Gupton's summary of our proposal, it's certainly points out that were fitting well within the municipal plan, and we welcomed his suggestion to adjust the location of our access directly across from Bar Road before we headed slightly uphill from that. Now, in locating the access at that location, it limits what we can do for stormwater attenuation, which I'll cover off in a second here. A few of the key features of our proposal. One, the land for public purposes that we proposed, it's smaller than required under the bylaw, although what the developer would like to do in this instance is actually develop that to like a mini park, because we are on the entrance into the town and, basically at the entrance to Minister's Island. Second, realigning the access. That's what made our stormwater attenuation pond, where we had located it before, difficult to deal with. So we're hoping that we can utilize some of the capacity in the Champlain Avenue stormwater attenuation facility. This will give us another way that we can help control the rents and keep them affordable. Third point, sidewalks are in place right up to the entrance of our project. And this is ideal for people who want to walk in towards town or other areas within the community. So that's what we looked at. It was a good point for this location. And the other thing is it would be very easy to create bike lanes from here along Mowat Avenue and onward to the Water Street. As far as the development goes, our intention would be to phase the development, and the first phase of the project would probably go up to where the road just starts to bend, something to service the first 2 to 4 buildings. And at that point, we would create a temporary turnaround. The idea there is just to help control costs, but yet to assure that the development is going to carry on and there's going to be future street connections to adjacent properties from where we propose the temporary turnaround, right around where it says Stonewall Place on the street. We could vest the rest of the street system as future streets. That would give the town complete control of assuring access into other adjoining properties. This is something we'll discuss as we go forward with the proposal, and those discussions will be with your staff and the planners. So this has been a brief presentation, but I believe I've covered most of the significant points. But I am certainly open to any questions staff or council or staff may have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I will open it up to questions. A quick one, the kind of dark gray, the Stonewall Place in the drawing, is that a private or is that a public road? I don't know, that's a question for Mr. Spear, or, because it kind of converts to almost driveway at the end of it. You can see to get to the parking lots. I'm just wondering, is the dark gray public or private?
That would be intended to be public.
Public, so okay.
Yeah, we've confirmed, Your Worship, too, that T shape meets the design for the roadway, so it meets the transportation concerns that we've had in other developments.
Yeah, and I do appreciate the fact that they put future Street A and future Street B for potential opportunities, maybe not for now, but for the long term, it's good to see. And as well, I note that towards the front of the development on the side towards, we'll call it Shamcook, it says potential land, public purposes, so it adds a little bit more buffer for the neighbor in that particular area, right? So I note that that's placed well, and I just want to also recognize the fact that the development, by the fact that they're kind of lining it up where it would come to the end of the Bar Road for traffic flow is greatly appreciated as well. So I guess my question then, before I pass it to everyone else, is kind of next steps. It would be, I assume that the application be for rezoning. Would that be the next step? What is asked at this point of the municipality would be my question.
Well, Your Worship, there is a meeting of objections coming up on July the 4th. that to go over this, and eventually council will need to going through the rezoning process. I will say that before we get to third reading, we'd have to do, get a development agreement in place, which gives you a lot more control over what everything looks like. And a subdivision agreement because of the way that they've got it split up with some of the buildings on smaller lots. So this right now is just a conceptual plan. We'll have to talk to the proponents. We may, before we go to first reading, have a little bit more detail than what's currently here. I noticed that he had pictures of a 2-story and a 3-story units, but we're not entirely sure which buildings are there, so we might look for a little bit more information before we get too deep into next steps. But regarding some other stuff, as we've done with past practice, any type of infrastructure has to be approved prior to development, and they do it at their expense, and it's reviewed by our engineers, including the use of that detention pond. And he's correct that where building B1 is right now, there initially was an on-site retention pond that would slowly put it into our storm sewer system. But the original plan had the road further up, I guess north, up the 127 towards Shamcook. And so you had two intersections that were there. And so they've, at the recommendation to the planners and staff, supported the Stonewall Place road was aligned with Bar Road, which we thought from a safety perspective made it much better. And so when Mr. Turner was talking about moving it across, that now there's an easement just across the road that goes through there that we might be able to join up, but there's going to have to be some calculations done to see what type of effect it will have on the retention pond as is. And it might be fine, just for the record. We want to have it a look that when it was designed about a decade ago now, it was primarily for the other side of the road that it looked at, so everything from Bar Road kind of up towards the middle of town, because there's a lot of water that comes down like Mowat Drive from, say, the Terra Manor down the road and crosses and goes down there. And so this development wasn't foreseen at the time of that design of the retention pond. We just have to review it and to make sure that it's not a concern. There is other availabilities for Mr. Turner and Mr. Evans to hold the water on the land, but as he mentioned earlier, any extra infrastructure is going to increase the total overall rentals. And so if they're committed to lower rental units or affordable, I won't use lower, but affordable rental units, then we want to certainly make sure that council agrees that we try to find avenues that will maintain, the final cost at a lower level.
Yeah, perfect. So right now, that's the other ask of the municipality then would be to try to work with a storm water management plan. Any idea, assuming the approvals, and I know that rezoning does take time, but when construction ideally would begin on a project like this for phase 1?
You have to Mr. Turner to answer that question. So Mr. Turner, when do you think, if, assuming we come to an agreement by the end of September, early October, would you look at beginning construction this, like, fall, winter, or do you think you'd wait till next spring? Council's just asking.
I think there's, if it's in that time frame, there's probably an opportunity to begin some site work. There certainly wouldn't be any opportunity to get further into building construction then, because we'd be into winter construction, and that gets as expensive as you know. Design work for the roadway and infrastructure, detailed design on the buildings. I think once we have a better sense of how things are going on the rezoning, we can get into that detail more. But again, it's if the process was shorter than that, there might be an opportunity to get enough infrastructure in the ground and maybe get a building permit on one of the buildings within this calendar year.
Your Worship, though, to set expectations in our other projects we've had going. It's been 6 or 7 months, truthfully, by the time council started the process, got a development agreement, and that a building permit could be issued. So if it be short of a miracle if we had something approved by the end of the summer. And so realistically, based on prior experience and that they're still working on conceptual plans, we're probably looking into a spring is before they'd really realistically be able to move ahead.
Thank you very much. Any other member of council have any questions? All right. Make sure Councilor Blanchard's on. All good there. All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Turner, for the presentation, and also Mr. Evans' commitment to providing more affordable housing in the town of St. Andrews. It's always good when you have a council meeting that is involved with 2 presentations related to housing. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thanks, Vernon.
No problem. Approval of minutes, we have none, so we are into communications. I will jump ahead to page 29. So it is from the Anglican Parish of St. Andrews. And just to summarize it, I'll grab one paragraph out of it. A preliminary discussion with the town of St. Andrews has begun concerning the possibility of creating parking spaces on Montague Street by widening the streets, as was done a number of years ago on Queen Street. This was achieved with the cooperation of the Parish Corporation, allowing the use of 3 feet of church-owned property. It is our hope if we can again come to an agreement on the creation of parking spaces on Montague Street. Some can be designated for handicap parking. So looking to, again, expand parking, I would say it does appear that they might be looking for municipal support to create those parking spaces. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Worship, that they'd be probably looking for, I think, that they'd like to provide the land if we provide the infrastructure.
To me, council, over to you, but this sounds like a budget conversation. I don't have you could do a rough estimate forcing it back, but it's paving that area probably is going to be
30 to 40
Exactly.
minimum. And what is always a wild card is storm issues. When you start adding pavement, you create more water that has to be gathered, and sometimes you have to create a storm sewer, which can add, or not a whole line, but a catch basin, which adds another $10,000 or $15,000. So we'll work with the engineers and them to come up with a proposal to council in the future.
Absolutely. I think it is worthwhile for council to consider those parking spots on Queen Street are well utilized, and this is really only a block up. Look forward to conversation. Councilor Heenan.
Your Worship and Council, just as a matter of note, the first year of our council, we had a proposal from the Catholic Church, and it was brought forward, and we said we couldn't do it because it would set a precedent for other churches, because we wanted to put parking in on the side. So I just want to make council aware that we had said that about 2 years ago. So we had a quote at that time for $13,100, and it was said we couldn't do it. So I just wanted to put that out there for FYI.
That is good information. So as
Thank you, Your Worship.
part of budget time, we should talk about both projects, just to both the precedent, but also the placement of them as well, to find out what is superior if we were to do one over the other for sure. So, so we'll revisit that at budget time. But in the meantime, if the church themselves were looking to pave it and just looking for the town partnership that way, then that would obviously be a different conversation. Okay, the next one is letters from Mayor Sue Lawn, who's Thorpe St. Andrews, UK, and she did write to us. They appreciate the ongoing partnership as sister communities, but they were updating us on some of their activities around the King's coronation and the continued community partnership. Council, it is contained within this package. I'll be writing a response to let them know of some of the activity that happened in our community around the King's coronation and our continued community partnership there. But I don't think at this time I'll read that out unless someone has it. It is contained within your package. So at this time I will jump ahead to staff reports on the financial report. So I'll pass it over to our CAO, Chris Spear.
Sorry, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for allowing me to do the report in mid-month after the eventful start. After an eventful start to the month, we're back to the normal business of the town. It has been good to see some outdoor activities such as Paddle Fest, the Wharf to Wharf race, and events at Kira taking place with large crowds attending. Despite the poor weather in June, the town has still been busy and looking forward to a good summer. Under council, Housing continues to be a priority for council, residents, and business owners alike. Tonight, we heard from Compass Housing and their plans to begin construction in the second half of this year, as well as potential development from Chris Evans and Rick Turner. We are delighted that developers continue to invest in the community as we try to fill the housing gap across multiple needs. An exciting federal initiative that we are exploring is the Housing Accelerator Fund. To provide the most flexibility, the application doesn't require special or specific projects like engineered estimates. Instead, it looks at concepts based on identified land and past building permits. It essentially provides you with an amount, and then you work to fulfill the needs. There are two streams of funding, which differentiates us from larger municipalities to ensure a more equitable distribution of funds. Mr. Gopin from the Planning Commission wants to meet with you to provide more detail, discuss and provide advice on submitting an application in July of this year. There is expected to be a large number of applications from all corners of the nation, and so we won't proceed to any sort of planning until we know what the federal financial commitment is. Before you tonight are the recommendations for the appointment of the Heritage Board. Councillors Harland and Hurdle, along with staff, interviewed all the candidates before you tonight. We are pleased at the level of commitment and knowledge shown by each and look forward to beginning the process with them. To help in the early stages, we are planning on engaging a heritage officer from another district to provide orientation and an overview of the process to get them started on the right foot. Since the fire, there have been donations coming in to aid property owners directly affected and for the fire department. Through generous donations of the New Brunswick Federation of Labor, the St. Andrews Chamber of Commerce, the New Brunswick Council of Health Unions, and Giant Tiger, we have approximately $10,000 in financial aid for victims. Before you tonight is an ad hoc policy on the application and distribution of the funds in order to provide guidance to staff and those affected. Once approved, staff will put out both a policy and the application to the public so those in need can begin the process. As part of the local government reform and the communities we welcome into the municipality, we are currently going through a website redesign. Senior staff are guiding the process, but will seek input from others once we have the mock website available for review. In the second week of June, both the clerk and I went for 4 days to our annual conference for senior municipal administrators from across New Brunswick. Although it's good to network with our peers, there were some good sessions that touch on such things as coastal erosion and the financial impact to private landowners and municipalities, ongoing challenges of reorganization, managing an organization through significant changes, and how artificial intelligence can benefit municipalities. It also gave us access to a trade show to touch base with vendors representing new technologies and new opportunities. With Canada Day only 11 days away, our recreation manager has done a fine job in his first year organizing it. We've added a few more events to stretch the occasion over 3 days, with the movie in the park on the 30th and live music on July 2nd, providing more opportunities outside the hectic pace of July 1st. He has also organized music in the square on Saturday nights over July and August, primarily thanks to a generous donation from our BIA. A team of 5 employees of the Regional Development Corporation were in St. Andrews to review the wharf project as they prepare to forward it to Infrastructure Canada on our behalf. They are still optimistic that some funding will be made available, but the timing of the approval is currently still in the air. On another note, staff were able to obtain an additional $84,000 in funding from RDC for various projects that are currently planned for this year and represent unexpected funding for the town. Thank you to Paul for his continued submission of application as we strive to get her done. I noted a couple of capital projects of interest. We are still awaiting approval from Infrastructure Canada for additional funding for the wharf. At this point in time, there's no word of when that decision could be made. Another project we've started is a washroom facility near the Dragonfly Center. We originally hoped to do this in partnership with the MBCC, who graciously offered their students. The issue we've run into is that they won't be back until the fall, and they can only proceed in construction after going through specific modules related to each component of a building. Staff are preparing drawings and getting quotes from contractors to see if having it constructed makes more sense. Otherwise, the project probably won't be completed until next spring. Services. May and June were a busy period for street and in-ground infrastructure products, but as of the writing of this report, all the work should be completed by the end of June, with asphalting completed by the second week of July. For all the residents affected, we thank you for your patience. In addition to these projects, we are also replacing the roof on the Ross Memorial Library. Although late June is not an ideal time for the work, we've experienced leaks over the past couple of years and needed to bring in the roofers on their schedule. The good news is it is below budget. The Ross Memorial Museum and Sheriff Andrews House have been open for the season since early June. However, due to staffing issues, we've had to wait to open the St. Andrews Blockhouse until July, when employees were available. We started the summer summer recruitment in early April and are still looking for people in mid-June. We have put a couple of surveys over the past few months regarding transportation and the Charlotte County Courthouse. We appreciate the high return we're experiencing on these, but it does take time to enter them into our system and produce the reports that are valuable to council. Over 500 surveys have been returned between the two projects. With the assistance of the recreation manager, the youth center has been able to offer more activities over the past couple of months. We have several organized activities a week going on in addition to the drop-in events. Another summer of half-day camps are also planned, so please inquire with Debbie Lord if interested. I also want to touch on the boil water advisory that was issued in early June, specifically to houses near Prince of Wales and Champlain. This was part of routine construction as a portion of the pipe was removed out of service. The testing is regulated by the province of New Brunswick, but at no time did we have concern with the supply that triggered the testing and boil order. In conclusion, with the pandemic mostly behind us and better weather ahead, we're hoping and expecting a busy summer season. For those that have spruced up their properties over the spring, we thank you for enhancing the streetscape in our historic business district. For those affected by all the construction, we thank you for your patience. Respectfully submitted, Chris Spear, CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. And as well, within our package, we do have the financial summary as of the end of April 30th, 2023. With a cover page, it highlights kind of by department, the revenue and expenses, including the utility operating fund, with any surplus and deficits. Is there anything that you want to highlight that was submitted by Andrew Lord, our Assistant Treasurer, Mr. Spear?
Only maybe to say this, Your Worship, is that we're certainly showing quite a large surplus, but I think by the time we get to the summer, a lot of that will disappear. There's been extra costs related, and so it might be just the way we've allocated the first quarter costs that we look like we're in a surplus, but we will be doing projections over the next couple of months as we prepare for budget season to get a better understanding of where we're at, so we're all better informed of any challenges or opportunities ahead.
Yeah, with no kind of major projects canceled, other than the ones that we did in order to offset some tenders that came in a little higher, I think it is, to your point, just phasing of timing when it looks at that surplus. And I'll note that it does say the department is $14,000 under budget. I'm assuming that once May hits, that'll probably, for the events that have happened, probably right size as well. So, Council, any questions on anything regarding the financial report or staff reports? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Could I have a motion to accept those reports then? I've got Councillor Harlan and seconded by Councillor Bennett. Any discussion? All in favor of accepting the reports, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. Those have been accepted. Thank you very much, Mr. Spear. Appreciate that. We are going to jump ahead now to the introduction, consideration, and passing of bylaws. I'll hand it over to the Deputy Mayor, who did a fabulous job speaking at the New Brunswick Community College graduation today for Finance Administration. Over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. My one is FA 230618. And it's Community Assistant Grant request from the Shiretown Community Services. So the background is this. The Town of St. Andrews has received a Community Assistance Grant request from Shiretown Community Services to help them purchase 2 stainless steel work tables to support the Community Kitchen program hosted at the Anglican Church Parish Hall. Please see the attached grant application for details. The request for funds is $1,000. The town of St. Andrews has $1,500 remaining in the community assistance grant funds. The motion is this, that the council of the town of St. Andrews approves the community assistance grant of $1,000 to the Shire Town Community Services for the purchase of 2 stainless steel kitchen tables to support the community kitchen program. I so move, your worship.
Thank you. A seconder for that one, Councillor Heenan. Discussion? Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship. And not to call into question the great work this organization does on a regular basis, but I'm just curious, with the financials, it looks like there is a surplus or a profit of about $1,900 for the year. Was there any indication given as to what that was earmarked for, if that's going to be swallowed up by something else? No? Okay, thank you.
So just so everyone's aware, that program will be continuing in the fall as well, and well attended. It's amazing how many people actually attend those. Basically, it's a soup usually every Friday. So, okay. Any other comments? All right. Call the question. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That has been carried. Thank you very much. And I saw Councillor Blanchard. I saw your hand online as well. Thank you. And now we're over to you, Councillor Blanchard.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Your Worship. Just had to get myself off mute. So for PW 230610, subject is Smart Energy Accelerator Program for the town of St. Andrews. The background is, as presented earlier by Eddie Oldfield, and I do apologize if I missed the presentation earlier. Quest Canada, the town of St. Andrews, has been Quest Canada and the town of St. Andrews has been participating in the pilot project Smart Energy Accelerator Program. The town has now successfully completed the 2-year program with goals, action plans, and economic development study completed. The town of St. Andrews is now eligible to apply for the Partners in Climate Change Milestone 4, and that is implementing a plan, and the town has achieved levels 1 through 3. So further, as a participant in the pilot project, the town was selected to be highlighted through Quest Canada as an example for other municipalities to follow in the Accelerator program, which includes publishing on the Accelerator webpage for Quest Canada and being noted as a community to be observed and learn from. With the recent expansion of the municipal boundaries, Quest Canada will be working with staff over the next few months to do an update on the energy mapping to include Bayside and Shamcook. So the motion to council is that the council of the town of St. Andrews approves the community greenhouse gas and energy action plan implementation and monitoring town of St. Andrews recommendations through Quest Canada, and I so move.
A seconder for that motion. Okay, Councillor Neal. We're open for discussion. Councillor Harland.
Thank you. I'm just wondering what the workload implications are for staff with respect to this. Because we seem to continue to have more and more tasks that we're putting on our staff.
Thank you. I appreciate your concern. I guess there's a motion made, I can't remember, but last year about reducing the greenhouse gases by 30%. So it is a priority, I think, of council to do this. A lot of the low-hanging fruit that involves staff directly has been achieved. Now it's getting quotes, providing budgets, and kind of the next end will be having consultants and or specialized contractors come in to do the next phases. So it'll add some initial workload to senior staff as we go through this, but there is programs available. We've made some contacts at the aforementioned meeting up in Edmundston with solar panel people and things that are actually local within southern New Brunswick. And so, and there's a lot of expertise within our Environmental Action Committee on making contacts and stuff. And so it'll be an extra workload, but we think it's manageable at this point and as part of the budget process, and to give you folks a clear indication of what's required. If it requires more hands on deck for somebody, that may be a consultant that'll have to work from an electrical engineering firm, which are specialists in that, to kind of carry through some of these projects. We'll advise at this point, we don't think so, but we haven't dug deep into what's going to be expected to carry out the next level. We have been working closely with Quest over the past couple of 3 years, especially Mr. Knopper through his involvement with the EAC and things. And so we're aware of what was in the report before it came out. And so we've just been quietly thinking about it and stewing on it to determine how we're going to approach it. We haven't formalized that yet, but at this point, there's no panic among staff that we can't handle it with the current workload.
It's a fair comment. Yeah, Mr. Knopper, by all means.
Sorry, just to follow up, Your Worship. So one of the action plans and items was to look at how we could prioritize our 5 largest GHG and energy users. So we've actually already applied to FCM for funding to look at how we develop a plan to get them to net zero. So we're already building it within our processes and integrating it. It's no different than your municipal plan or any of our other plans. It's how we integrate those action items into budgets, into how do we manage facilities and go from there. So it's nice to see the actions and the goals that were brought forward, and we are excited to see how Shamcook and Bayside can be a part of the next phase of the plan.
Thank you. It's also important to note that some of the things like move the town from flat rate water metering to a water meter system to conserve water. We've been investing in that to prepare for this too. But the point is taken. It is important to know. I'm going to call it a friendly amendment, I believe. When it says to start by 2022, 2023, that's got to read 2023, 2024, just so it can implement this budget process time, right? So I don't think we need a formal motion on that. I think we just bump, and the same thing would be by the medium priorities. They go from 2024 to 2025, right? We bump everything back a year, just for time. Mr. Spear?
Yeah, just one other thing. Mr. Oldfield might have not been aware about us also incorporating the Bayside Port into our new area, and that'll be a big part of that, and there could be significant savings out there. So he talked about, half a day to do it. Without knowing that large complexes out there, we might have just tripled his workload in the consultation thing. So I'll drop him a quick email tomorrow to remind him about the facility down there. And previously, when this was done before amalgamation, we did bring in some of the larger users to make them aware. It's all voluntary, by the way, that the town can only do what it's got within our own facilities. But many of the industrial users, because at the end of the day, it is dollars and cents, just like we talked about, that heat pumps reduce electric bills by 50%. There's a lot of other things that can be done. And so some of the organizations that aren't affiliated with us are still very interested in following this out and are certainly part of the plan and can get some of the expertise of Quest Canada.
Thank you. Very valid point, especially when you get into cold storage facilities and the size and magnitude that they are at the port. Any other comments? Councillor Harlan? Yep.
So they had also talked in the report about, doing some education and community awareness. I was unclear if that was a task that Quest would do or that would fall on the shoulders of the municipality.
I can, through your worship, I can see part of that coming through the Environmental Advisory Committee, as like their newsletter's going to come out here very shortly. So more of that education, more of that information will start to go through, but it's something I want to take back to the EAC and see what they want to help educate and push forward.
And it could be something that could be added on to our website, right?
Actually, we have a page that talks about our Environmental Advisory Committee, and so the PCP program that was discussed by Mr. Oldfield, we've actually achieved level 3, so we're going to apply to level 4, and so that's already on our website, and the goal is to have these documents added once approved by council, and then more education, more information will be made available.
And one of the things that even came up to the EAC was to do like a conference, like a one-day where people could come in that were interested, have maybe vendors like a solar panel people or whatever, or even some energy engineers that could tell people and help people provide their services. So it'd be good for both residential users, but also those that have significant energy bills. And we don't know if that'll be this year or early next, but it was something that was identified as a possibility to help with the education, and we thought it was a good one to do.
Thank you. Councillor Ware.
One thing I might add is for instance, the mayor mentioned the cold store. Lineage in Europe has hundreds of thousands of square feet of cold storage that is all powered by solar energy. The entire tops of their warehouses are solar panels. And I'm sure sometime Mr. de Roon is over from Holland. He would be very pleased to come down and explain to everybody how they've accomplished this. And they've done quite a job on it in Europe, and they're working into the U.S. now on it. They're just getting into Canada, so, but it will come.
Thank you, Councillor Ware. Any other member of council? Okay, Councillor Blanchard's hand. Good thing I could barely see it. Proving that I
was
need
just going to speak up, Your Worship.
that little hand in the corner. That's why I need glasses. Go ahead.
Well, no, I appreciate that. And Mr. Knopper actually touched on a little bit about a little bit of what I was going to mention. In that, well, first of all, I mean, the report is very comprehensive. There's a lot of information there. It's an excellent report, and I support just about everything there. I do have maybe a few concerns with. There was a fair bit of being put on to maybe the EAC, our Environmental Advisory Committee. There's and I wonder, not if the committee is capable, because there's some very, very capable, very knowledgeable people on that committee. It's just whether the time commitment will be there if we're putting more work onto them. But I think that's a discussion to be had with the committee. But just to mention, it did talk about combining resources, I think, and taking more of a regional approach and looking at maybe a full-time position that's cost shared between municipalities through the Regional Service Commission, what have you, through the province. I think that's an excellent idea because as hard as Mr. Knopper has worked on this file, and he has worked very hard and done an excellent job, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work here. And it's difficult to do it from grant to grant, from council to council. I do think there needs to be a dedicated individual who can just focus on this and carry these things forward, because we're at the stage now where we are looking at, and the recommendations are there. And I know, as Mr. Knopper had mentioned, we've got a grant application in, I think it's to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Mr. Knopper, if I'm not mistaken, to try and actually get funding to look at what we can actually do. I know we've identified through this process and some others, some of our big emitters, let's say, or the things that cost us the most in terms of greenhouse gas, but also dollars and cents. And we need expertise to come in and say, what are some options? What can we actually do? Because I don't know that we have the expertise to do that, and that's what that will do. And like I said, I think we are getting really close to the point where we can take some significant actions, as had been indicated earlier, I think by Mr. Spear. The low-hanging fruit, I think, have been dealt with, and now we need to look at some of these bigger projects to deal with our bigger emitters, but the ones that are going to cost, we are going to have to invest in. But down the road, obviously, we will see cost benefit from that down the road. It's just going to take a little bit of time. So, anyways, just wanted to say that it was a great report. Just a little bit of concern about the Environmental Advisory Committee and how much we're tasking them with. But otherwise, it was really, really well done. So thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Blanchard. Glad I saw your hand. I will just say in response to that at the Regional Service Commission, when you look at waste management, they have had a surplus for a few years, and a lot of that has to do with clients using the facility from the United States, where you can't necessarily rely on it and you can't budget around it, but they do use it, and that does create a surplus. And the surplus that is there, from my understanding, is supposed to be used towards green projects. So to discuss at the Regional Service Commission using some of that surplus to go back for a position like this, I think it's a worthy conversation to have. And I don't have all the communities in front of me. It's in here, but I know, for example, the municipality of St. Stephen is also one of the communities participating in this. So there might be some merit to that comment. And then as they're accepting, I believe, 6 more communities, he said during his presentation, maybe there's an opportunity to really, as an RSC, maybe lead the way with this particular initiative. So with that suggestion, I think it would be only appropriate that I take that back to them and talk about how that savings, I guess you could say, from years past can be used to maybe, it's collected for environmental reasons. It should be reinvested back into environmental reasons. So this is definitely a worthy one. So very fair
Your
comment.
Worship, sorry if I could just
Absolutely.
just to that comment. Yeah, no, just with that comment, I'd like to bring that back to the Regional Service Commission as well, because as you know, there are committees set up through the Regional Service Commission. Waste management is one, and I'm supposed to sit on that, and we still have not had a single meeting. So I'm anxiously waiting for the email where we could actually bring some of these proposals, bring some of these comments forward to the Regional Service Commission and have those discussions. So, and I know you've sent out emails as well, but I still have not heard anything. So I would really, like I said, look forward to those conversations.
Yeah, I think there will be a window for that. And this is just an assumption. You weren't here for the beginning, but we're going to talk about the strategic plans. My assumption is because they had such tight timelines on 4 strategic plans that the Regional Service Commission has been putting pretty much all their efforts outside of regular operations towards those 4 mandated services. And I'm hoping once they get the actual strategic plans passed, which is supposed to be on June 29th, that some of these other committees, because I think there's 3 that actually haven't met in a while that I'm aware of. So I'll circle back on that one. As you know, we did send emails, but on the 29th, maybe after we get them potentially approved, I'll circle back on that to start diving into some of this stuff. So thank you for that. Anyone else? All right. So let's call the question. We have a mover and a seconder. All in favor of this motion and accepting this, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody that's been accepted. We're moving on to Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is reference number PS 230610, and the subject reads, Policy regarding distribution of donations received regarding the 2023 forest fires. So after the devastating forest fires in Bocabec and Shamcook in late May, early June 2023, a few organizations have come forward with donations to assist those affected by the event. In order to ensure a transparent process, staff have created the attached policy and are seeking council input. At the writing of this report, around $10,000 has been collected. So the included time periods in the application are to allow individuals to get their documentation together in a reasonable timeline while distributing the funds in a timely manner. The town will create an ad hoc committee of senior staff, the fire chief, and the mayor to review applications. So the motion reads that Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the policy regarding the distribution of donations received regarding the 2023 forest fires. And I so move, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. A seconder for that one. I've got Councillor Ware. Discussion. Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one quick comment about it. Just a lot of insurance policies do cover evacuation accommodation costs, and so people should be looking into their insurance with that in mind. It may not just be for fire loss.
Correct, yes. I think that's one of the things that has to be maybe stated if they have insurance or not, based on the application. Yeah, but it's a fair point. Some people aren't aware that it is covered. I will say, just a technical, I'm okay with it, but I think it says in the background that I review applications, but in the application process, it just says the CAO clerk and fire chief. I trust that staff can do it. I just wanted to for that background in the actual, there seems to be, I'm omitted, which is fine. I'm good with that, but I just for the background, I wanted to state that. And it is important to note that 10,000 sounds like a lot of money, but when you get that many homes, it really, unfortunately, is not. So basically, municipality's going to collect all of them, look at the whole situation before it disperses funds. And the only other thing that I want to add on that one from my notes is trying to get it here. It was, what's the communication strategy on making sure that people in Shamcook and Bocabec are aware of this particular program? Visiting some of those homes that are not everyone has a computer in some of those areas.
We'll have to try to see if there's a better way. I'm in contact with the Red Cross, hopefully to get some of their contact information. If nothing else, we can put it back to them to forward email on this potential program. We'll do the normal mail outs, which we know can be a struggle. We can put advertisements in the local paper and CHCO our partners at CHCO, even on the local radio station, just to make sure people are aware. This type of thing may be even provided as a community announcement. And yeah, and that's our strategy to date, but we're open to any recommendations to reach people.
Oh, that's fair. Okay, so it sounds like a multifaceted approach then. All right, anyone else? Councillor Harlan.
So just a couple of points of clarification. So it says damage to a primary residence. For the areas that were immediately affected by the fire, power was cut off, correct? Power was cut off to those homes.
For a relatively short amount of time, from what I understand.
Oh, was it?
Because I know the town was without power for like a half a day, because I know on the first day and that Sunday,
Okay.
Monday, we were trying to find out if it was going to be a long-term thing, and then, except for those that might have been right within the affected areas, the zone that was actually being battled, everybody else that wasn't, didn't have fire on the property, should have had their power running.
Okay.
It was rerouted, right? It was manual. It was done as part of the rerouting of the lines.
Okay.
But with that being said, I don't know if there's any one-off roads that lost any power for any extended time. But if they did, I'd encourage them to apply and notify town, and it can be investigated.
Right. Because I would worry about loss of fridge and freezer contents, those kinds of things. And the other is there any ability for some flexibility around the support by receipts? So I'm thinking about people who, during that period of time, were just dealing with the reality of getting through each day, and perhaps did purchase a meal, but didn't keep a receipt. Could we look at a per diem? If somebody is applying that there's a per diem for meals for that period of time, I'm just wondering if there's anything that could be a bit more flexible around that piece.
So I guess to answer that, hotels are fairly easy because you can get those reissued. So you're wondering if someone went to Tim Hortons, purchased a meal, didn't get the receipt.
Yeah.
I guess it's a bit of a slippery slope would be the only concern there is that if you get into per diems, everybody that was out of their place just goes to you and says they might have been eating at a friend. Not saying they do it, but stayed at their friend's place and submitted their per diem, right? That's the only, and 10,000 will go pretty quick if we get into that, is my assumption. But over to you for your response.
That'd be my concern too, Your Worship. I understand where Councillor Harland is coming from. And I guess it was just the receipts was try to make sure those that really needed it, because there were meals being made available in lots of other locations, was to help those that were really out of pocket.
Yeah.
But I understand where you're coming from, and I'm not sure, so that's really up to council. I'm good with either. The receipt thing kind of made sure those that really were out of pocket. But as you said, if at the height of the moment, if they were just grabbing stuff here and there, probably not thinking or even possibly saving the receipt. So I'm open.
Yeah, and it's the people who really need it that I'm the most concerned about. They may not have been thinking about keeping a receipt.
Maybe submit it, and then we could review the total request. Priority be given to the ones that maybe have, unfortunately, receipts just for backing. But depending how many, if a good portion of these probably have insurance, right? So, but in the same sense, the insurer provider wouldn't be paying it out if they didn't have their receipt either. So, let's allow it to be submitted, but we'll see how many we receive, right?
We'll try to be as flexible for sure, Councillor Harland. It's just, like we said, the 10 or 15,000 seems good, but when you think of the number of homes that were vacated, that money could disappear in a flash. I want to thank Councillor Hurdle for reminding the public, because I did reach out to find out, and I didn't know how extensive, especially in a forest fire, these would go, but our brokers assured me that this type of thing happens all the time, and that as long as you're insured, almost all the costs related to it, including being displaced, would be covered by the insurance company. The only caveat might be those that weren't anywhere near the fire, but still were taken out of their home for a day or two, may not be covered because the event really, the fire wasn't near their residence. It was just for safety purposes.
Up to the interpretation of the policy. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're open to anything, but thank you.
Councillor Ware.
Just one comment based on having been involved in these things. I think we've got to give the, let's call it a committee, some flexibility. I think it's also very important that we do not expect the committee to come back to us and indicate any names or anything like that. Has to be a lot of dignity shown to the people that are being helped, and it should be right at the top of the list. And so we have to have faith in our team that they're going to do the job and do it properly.
Thank you, Councillor Ware. All right, Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship. Councillor Harland, I just wanted to follow up with Councillor Hurtle said fridges and freezers are also covered under policies. So if they have a policy, it shouldn't be an issue. It's going to just be the individuals who did not have insurance policies that we're going to find are going to be hard, and they're the ones that need it the most, right? So, and as our Chief Executive Officer said, $10,000 doesn't go a long way. So I foresee it as just being the really needy that will probably, because if you're going to make one insurance claim, you do it all. Like you do it for your freezer, you do it for your lodging, you do it for the whole thing, and that's most policies cover that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Yes, Your Worship. I'd like to state for a matter of public record, for those of you who don't know, my wife and I, we were evacuated from our home. I'm not reclusing myself from this process. I did not have a loss at my home, thankfully, and we had no expenses, so I certainly wouldn't have a claim as part of this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, Councillor Neal.
Just to add on to the discussion regarding the insurance claims, again, just reading through the policy, it does mention that basically this is intended for uninsured losses, but it also relates to the deductibles for any insured losses.
That's a good point.
Just to point that out.
It's a very valid point. And those can range. All right. Anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving this policy, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody. Policy has been passed. And we are now moving on to business, tourism, heritage, and culture. I beat him in the Father's Day race. Councillor Hurtle.
Wow, okay. And this is in reference to BTHC 230607. I'll leave my comments for the mayor to the end of the discussion today. And this is, the subject is the establishment of a heritage board for the town of St. Andrews. The background is that staff and council have been working through an application process to establish a heritage board under the Heritage Conservation Act of the province of New Brunswick. The goal of this board is to develop and present a heritage bylaw for consideration by council. Based on the application process and interviews conducted, staff and council recommend the establishment of a heritage board and the appointment of the following members to the board. Staff recommends using best practices to stagger terms of office to keep cohesion and consistency with the board. One of the motions before us is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the creation of a heritage board under the Heritage Conservation Act of the province of New Brunswick, and I so move.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hurtle. Seconder for that one. Deputy Mayor Ackergy, any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All in favor of approving this first motion, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody, so we're on to the next one.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the second motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews appoints the following members with terms of office for the Heritage Board of St. Andrews. Number 1, Barbie Smith with a 3-year term. Number 2, James Janot with a 3-year term. Number 3, Monica Cole with a 2-year term. Number 4, John Kelly with a 2-year term. Number 5, Cindy Kohler with a 3-year term. Number 6, Dylan Smith with a 2-year term. Number 7, Dwight Ingalls with a 2-year term. And number 8, Alexander Gopin, Senior Planner, Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission with a 3-year term. Number 9, myself, Councillor Jamie Hurtle with a 3-year term. And then number 10, Councillor Annette Harland as an alternate for a 3-year term as well. And I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Hurtle. Once again, I'll be looking for a seconder. I've got Councillor Bennett. Discussion? Mr. Spear.
Sorry, Worship. This is just a minor thing, but for appointees 8, 9, and 10, usually don't put terms on employees are just on indefinitely, and the 2 councillors usually keep to the service of the term.
Can we get away with that as a friendly amendment? Yes.
Your Worship, sorry, I don't think Mr. Spear had his microphone on, so it was a little hard to hear that.
Sure, Councillor Blanchard. He said that number 8, 9, and 10. So Mr. Gopin, Councillor Hurley, and Councillor Harlan typically don't have terms as their employees. It's usually indefinite until there's a change in position or they decide that they're going to something else. So I asked if it was a friendly amendment, and Mr. Knopper, who is my rules coordinator, has given me the nod that it's okay. So we're going to drop that out of there. Any other discussion on this one? I saw a hand, Councillor Hurl, and I will add just before you go, Councillor Hurl and Harlan sat in on interviews on all the candidates. So by all means, if you have any insight into that, I'd greatly appreciate that as well, since I wasn't part of the process. Councillor Hurl.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just, on that note, just wanted to extend a heartfelt thank you to everybody that did put their name in and to put yourself forward in this group. I just want to speak to the incredible amount of experience. And again, for some reason in St. Andrews, and I think it's just because of where we live, we're very fortunate to have talented individuals across the board, whether they put their name forward for positions on town staff or whether around this table as well. And again, I think with this heritage, people have put their names forward for the Heritage Board as well. Fantastically talented people with a diverse range of experiences and skill sets. We have people that have architecture in their background, heritage in their background, actual tactile skill in some of the things that we're looking for, and just a wealth of knowledge and information. So I'm excited to see all the diverse viewpoints come together in this group and for this purpose as well. I think they'll work really well with one another because it is a large group. I think we went with almost filling all of the positions that were possible in this group as well. So I'm really excited for them to get started. Again, I think it's a marathon, not a race when we deal with these sorts of things as well. We're not trying to jump really quickly to implement anything immediately, but I think it is important that this is definitely a lens through which we view the community, and I'm really looking forward to working with the individuals that have put their names forward as well. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harlan.
It was a great opportunity for me to be involved in the interview process, and I echo everything that Jamie said. But what I would also add is what came out in the interviews was the passion by which people were putting their names forward, the passion and commitment that they have to our town, which I just think is amazing, and I think this will bode well for the committee or the board as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any other member of council? Okay, I will just echo those before we go to the vote. I really appreciate people putting their hands forward. This is a significant commitment. It's not an easy process. And I think it's very, very important for this committee, if the motion has passed, that they realize that before we go to first reading, we want to make sure we have it pretty darn right. Because once we go to first reading, we put ourselves on a shot clock. And that's what happened last time. The former council before the one that was actually facing it went to first reading, and it put the council on the shot clock for reading number 2 and reading number 3. And ultimately, whether people liked or didn't like what was in that bylaw, that was a very, very important factor to it not actually being implemented. So there's no race to get this in tomorrow. There's no race to get it in next month. This council has 3 years left, essentially. So we have plenty of time to make sure that we get it right. And Councillor Hurley, on that, I think I sparked something in you.
You tend to, whether it's because I'm behind you in a race or something else. But I just wanted to, on that point, I obviously don't wish to come across as attempting to sway the direction of the board at all. But, everyone that came to it with a perception of support and education as opposed to direction. And I think that's an important nuance that I don't think was lost in any of the people that were putting their names forward, is that they want to help support people. They want to help educate people what's available, what support's available, what knowledge is available that's out there too, as opposed to confining, I think, the group to a single myopic viewpoint. They want to keep it based on how do we help the community and show people what's possible. And so I just wanted to appreciate that viewpoint and encourage it to keep going.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Well said. All right, unless there's anyone else, I'll call the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Once again, that one has been carried. Thank you very much. That's it for motions for you, Councillor Hurdle. But the next is a discussion on Cannabis New Brunswick proposal for St. Andrews, which is BTH C230608. Staff report submitted was by Mr. Knopper. Is he taking the lead on this one? Mr. Knopper, if you want to, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Worship. So in your package, you have received a brief description and an outline from Cannabis New Brunswick proposing a couple of... So backtrack here. So Cannabis New Brunswick, back in the fall of 2022, put out RFPs for 10 individual private operators of cannabis businesses in the province. They did go through the award process. St. Andrews was selected as one of the communities to potentially have an option for a business in here. I know that there's been a proponent that was awarded and that has had a struggle of trying to find a location in the community, storefront based to operate. As part of that, Cannabis New Brunswick is putting forward an option for council's consideration. As you can see in your package, this is a concept of basically a vendor truck to be parked at the liquor store here in St. Andrews. As an option. So with review of the planners, so there would need to be a temporary, basically a temporary operation license allowance for it, as well as a peddler's permit would need to be issued under this. The clerk's office can issue peddler's permits within this, but this is quite a discussion for council and should get council direction prior to any permits being issued. We do have a representative here from Cannabis New Brunswick. If you wish to have any questions or comments brought forward, they did provide you another visual for of a concept of what they are proposing. So basically, council, the floor is yours to debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knopper. Okay, council, this is over to us. I don't mind leading off, and if someone feels contrary, please speak their mind. I can totally appreciate that sometimes finding storefront in downtown St. Andrews can be very difficult. It is for multiple people, but I will say that this town has had a long history of not allowing even a taco truck in downtown St. Andrews. And cannabis NB to me is like alcohol NB. It is legal, but I don't actually have a vision for this community of having alcohol NB, having a traveling mobile unit in our downtown either. So for me, this is not the model I envision for our community. Unless someone feels contrary, now would be the time or have any questions. But although I appreciate the creativity of trying to find a way to conduct business in St. Andrews, to me, this is not the path forward. Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Worship. This question is more for Xander. You sort of defined it here in your report for us. My question is regarding the municipal plan, section 2.5.2. I'm really having a hard time grasping the spirit of that section and what it's intended to say in terms of it's up to the council to regulate the cannabis industry. That seems like a large ask for a municipality. Can you define it any better than what's currently in the report?
Sure. So I think the intent of that, and again with municipal plan policies, unlike a zoning bylaw policy, they're a little bit more vague, a little bit more open to interpretation. And I think this one speaks specifically to the proliferation of such establishments and sort of monitoring them. And I guess I think the concern would be, there are some neighborhoods in Toronto, for example, that have become completely, I don't want to say overrun, but you see a predominance of this type of business. And I think the market probably doesn't work for that, but I think that's the concern is really about a particular type of business becoming dominant in a streetscape. And so my interpretation of that is, the first one definitely is not a cause for concern. It's more, are you getting more and more? And there's sort of a similar municipal plan policy around short-term rentals, like Airbnbs. It's kind of, council should keep an eye on it, and if seen necessary, regulate it further. Now, in the zoning bylaw, it's not a clearly allowed use, so it is something that either needs this temporary use variance, in this case for a temporary use, or it would need a similar to or compatible with variance. Now, that might be something that council wants to look at closer when you're looking at your municipal plan and zoning bylaw when that process happens. But it's kind of just to keep an eye on that policy. Because I think at the time when that municipal plan was written, there had just been a provincial directive about these businesses. They were just starting up. So it was a bit of a precautionary measure.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Any other comments or questions from council? Councilor Ware, then we'll go to Councilor Gumichel.
I guess I would echo your comments from the point of view we would be setting a precedent by having a vendor truck parked downtown. I think the Heritage Committee might have a very strong opinion on it. I don't recollect ever seeing a vending truck in the downtown area of the town. And it's a special situation, but I'm sure everyone that has a vending truck that wants to set it up downtown thinks they are a special situation. And I just feel you're opening a can of worms for hot dogs and hamburgers and ice cream trucks and novelties and the whole thing, and how do you turn them down and allow another one? So
Thank you, Councilor Ware. Councilor Gumichel.
Thank you, Your Worship. So initially, same as I think the rest of the council, I didn't think it was a great idea, but I'm curious, are there any other cannabis trucks? Can we call it a weed truck, or are there any other mobile cannabis stores in operation? So this would be the only one?
That would be the first one, yes.
The first one.
Just, yeah, if you don't mind.
Thank you for
Thank
coming,
you.
by the way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate the invite to be here. No, we actually, last summer, we operated in the Container Village in St. John, and that was the first of its kind there. So if you're familiar, ever been to Area 506, we did have a location there.
Thank you.
So we couldn't call it the weed truck.
The name is still up for debate, so yeah.
So jokes aside, I did notice that you want to be in the liquor store parking lot. Isn't there an opportunity to be maybe in the liquor store?
No, there is not. It's my understanding, there's a local group that has a space in the liquor store.
Sorry? A
It's
local-
occupied.
Oh.
There is a location in the liquor store that is occupied. Marie might be able to better inform on who that.
It's the Fundy Community Foundation
That
on the
community,
side.
yes, yeah.
But I
yeah.
mean, I'm aware of that, sorry. But I
Yes.
mean, in the liquor store itself, one corner.
No, there's no opportunity for that, actually. Yeah.
It seems unfortunate. It seems like a good fit,
Yeah.
so
yeah.
to speak.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
That would have been a debate from the day it started. Yeah, because that would have been a heavy conversation at the time. They used to have Center of Discovery in the liquor stores, and almost all the major stores were outfitted with one. And you got to think, this is me back in my former life. You got to think that would have been a great opportunity to maybe combine the two, and for the province of New Brunswick save a significant amount of overhead.
Yeah. There's that's a model that exists in Nova Scotia, actually. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's unfortunate we couldn't have that model here, but.
Yeah.
So as much as I think a weed truck might be welcomed by some, I'm not sure that it's a right fit for St. Andrews, sorry.
Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship and Council. And by the way, thank you very much for attending. I do appreciate it. I am all for business anywhere in any town, so it's not the product. It's the idea of the truck. It just kind of strikes me as bootlegging. And so I would agree with the mayor that I just don't see it happening And especially when we have the cannabis store in St. Stephen, which is really not a long hike if someone really wants it. And I just see a big CBC, St. Andrews, first town to have mobile cannabis truck. I don't know if that's the publicity that we'd like to see. So, anyway, that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Got lots of hands on this one. We'll make our way across. We'll go, I think Councillor Harlan, then Councillor Hurdle, then Deputy Mayor was the order. So
I would like to see a taco truck. just saying.
Well, beside the cannabis MB one, that.
Maybe not in the downtown, on the downtown street, but somewhere. I don't think that a cannabis truck is the right fit for St. Andrews. But I do also wonder, to Councillor Heenan's comment, we in St. Andrews go to St. Stephen for lots of things. We go there for our dentist. We go there if we need a peanut butter parfait. Like, I'm not sure why we have to, if there is enough business, obviously it's been looked at and there's enough business sense to bring it here potentially, but it doesn't seem like it's that big of a stretch for us to continue to access services in St. Stephen.
Yeah, we recently opened part of our private retail in Grand Bay, Westfield, which is actually not a fairly close distance to our Fairville location in St. John. They had a very successful opening week, and it provides opportunity for people that are in the illegal market to come and get safe legal cannabis is the goal. Yeah,
Thanks.
you're welcome.
Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for being here. It's
Yeah.
great to see you.
Great to
I
see
do
you
have a
too.
couple of questions just around the model that you're proposing here as well. Is this the idea behind this to be permanent? Is it always parked there, or is this just a temporary stopgap?
It's just a temporary over the summer up until Labor Day weekend, and then potentially other opportunities for it down the road.
Would it be parked there overnight?
Yes.
Okay. And last question is, when it's in operation, would it be an idling vehicle? Would it be there with the engine turned on?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
We have everything set up that we could have it very a nice temperature for the employees that would be there. Yeah, for sure.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. I am not for a traveling truck like this with cannabis. I'm sorry, I'm just totally against it. And I agree with Councillor Harland, Councillor Weir, that we're setting a precedence. We have turned down the trucks before, and it's just not something I like to see in the town. And I think, as Councillor Harland said, we can get to St. Stephen. It's close enough. A lot of us do shopping or there, and there are ways to get there. I just don't feel this is a good fit for St. Andrews. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy
Mayor
Mayor.
and Council.
Councillor Gumashell.
Can I just chime
yes.
in? I'd rather not, I don't go to St. Stephen Cannabis Store, but if I did want to, I'd rather do it in St. Andrews. So
Yeah.
not to disagree, but
Yeah.
if there's an opportunity for a new business to come to town, I think if there was space and a different model, we'd love to have.
Yeah.
Yes.
in St. Andrews.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll just do a quick consensus here, Council. Those that are opposed to the concept, just give me a quick show of hands. Okay, that's consensus. Thank you. Do appreciate you being here and the time and the travel, and look forward to maybe finding another path forward with you. We are going to skip Recreation Community Services, Councillor Gumashell, because he beat me in the race. So we're going to go into Planning and Economic Development with Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. It's PED 230509, bylaw number 23-03, being the building bylaw for the town of St. Andrews, second and third reading. As part of the local governance reform, all bylaws of the town of St. Andrews need to be reviewed and approved by council to include any updates and the new geographical areas of our community. Council has taken the following steps with bylaw number 23-03, being the building bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. First reading was Monday, May the 1st, 2023. Public hearing of objections was Monday, June 5th, 2023. As there were no objections or comments from the public hearing, council can give bylaw number 23-03 second and third reading by title. One of the motions is that that the Council of St. Andrews grants leave for the second reading to bylaw number 23-03, being the building bylaw for the town of St. Andrews, and your worship, I so move.
Seconder, please, for second reading. Got Councilor Harlan. Discussion? Okay, all in favor of going to second reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye, your worship.
It's everybody. Here we go. This is the bylaw number 23-03, being the building bylaw for the town of St. Andrews by title. 1 is definitions. 2 is purpose and scope. 3 is exemptions. 4 is notice of commencing construction. 5 is posting on the premises. 6 is obligations of constructor. 7 is stages of construction. 8 is notice of readiness for inspection. 9 is retention of documents. 10 is request for information. 11 is application for permits. 12 is fees. 13 is refusal to issue permit. 14 is suspension or revocation. Revocation? I got that? Revocation? Really? A permit. 15 is terms and conditions. 16 is repeal. Can you guys tell I'm tired today? This is read the second time, June 19th, 2023, and I get to read that word again maybe. So next motion, Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, worship. That the Council of the Town of St. Andrews grants leave for the third and final reading to bylaw number 23-03, being the building bylaw for the Town of St. Andrews. I so move.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Bennett, discussion. Don't anticipate it on third if we didn't have it on second. Seeing none, calling the question for third reading. All in favor?
Aye, your worship.
And we lost Councillor Blanchard, did we? He's froze. Really? All right, well, did he catch second reading? He wasn't there for second either, eh? Well, unfortunately, we still have consensus either way, so. We've answered that, eh? We all good, so I go with third reading title. Bylaw number 23-03, being the building bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. Once again, 1 is definitions, 2 is purpose and scope, 3 is exemptions, 4 is notice of commencing construction, 5 is posting on the premises, 6 is obligations of constructor, 7 is stages of construction, 8 is notice of readiness for inspection, 9 is retention of documents, 10 is request for information, 11 is application for permits, 12 is fees, 13 is refusal to issue permit, 14 is suspension or revocation of permit, 15 is terms and conditions, 16 is repealed, read the third time on June 19th, 2023. All right, and that takes us through the motions. So we're now jumping into new business, which we updated from the amendment in the agenda. So I added the Regional Service Commission strategic plans. So council, there's 4 strategic plans that are going to be before the Regional Service Commission Board on June 29th, 2023. As of right now, I do have a draft copy of one, but I do not have a draft copy of all of them. So it is very, very hard for me as mayor, and I know that in the past in this community, the mayor kind of voted and didn't really check in with council. I like to check in with council. I look at myself as the voice of council there. And if it's a small thing, then no. But major things, I always want to check back with you. But the truth is, we're not meeting before the June 29th date where I have to approve this. So my plan, just to let you know, is we have different councilors that are assigned to different committees. My plan is to have a one-on-one conversation with each of the committee councilors. In fact, Councilor Ware and I had a good conversation today about economic development. But once all of the draft documents are out, or the RSC has requested them a couple days in advance, I'll plan to flip those if you don't get them and have a conversation with you on what you're seeing and what you're feeling. It is important to know that they are very, very high level. They weren't given a whole lot of time to get this exercise done, and they're more high level because they really don't want to limit opportunity right now until they've had time to actually work within the communities to find out what those opportunities are. And then, there is discussion on what does this mean? Is it too high level? How do you connect with the grassroots of the businesses or organizations? So there's a lot of conversations. And I think what we're really going to see, as Councillor Ware and I talked about, is probably in a year's time, we're really going to see kind of what these plans mean on a more of a street level. So I wanted to make everybody aware of that I'm not just going to go into the vote on my own. I'm going to check with everyone that's attended their committee to make sure that they give me some input for around the Regional Service Commission table on that one. So is there any questions on that process, Councillor Harlan?
Can you just remind us what the 4 strategic plans are?
So there is, let me write it down, economic development, there is tourism, and there is recreation, and then there is the community development one. So those are the 4. Okay. So I will meet with each of those individual portfolio, I guess you could say, chairs for us as a council, get their input on how to take to the table. Not ideal, but that is the timelines we've been given. In a perfect world, I'd have them, distribute them to you, talk about it, and almost like it's a big enough thing that it should almost be a workshop for council, and then I can bring forward that, but that's not in the cards, unfortunately. Okay, no other questions? Okay, the next one was summer meeting schedule. Myself and Deputy Mayor met with Mr. Spear this morning, and Mr. Knopper's looped in as well. The idea would be in July and August. It's a busy time, so we were thinking of going from 2 regular meetings to 1 regular meeting for July and August. Keeping in mind, council, if we do that they are going to be longer. You're going to probably expect 3 presentations plus quite a few motions, but I think by the people I've talked, we'd rather just have 1 long meeting and have a few less meetings during the summertime, if that makes sense. Absolutely. I'm just looking for some consensus if everyone seems fine with that. I've got maybe a comment here from Councillor Hurdle.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's possible to, I'm just thinking about flexibility. If it's possible to have ad hoc meetings, if something comes up that warrants splitting it into 2, can we sort of pivot relatively last minute for all of us? I know it's difficult when we're planning and doing vacations and whatnot. I just, if we had something that just warrants larger discussion and debate, I wouldn't necessarily want to rush through it if we have to have a longer conversation around them.
We can, and to take that even further, is if there's something where our meeting schedule is holding back important business for an organization or something like that, we can call special council meetings. We've actually done a pretty good job of not having many, but in the previous council that I was on, we had, I don't know how many special meetings, but a lot, I think is how you say it. So yes, we can. Basically, we can call a meeting anytime we want with 3 business days notice, really is kind of our standard, so. Yeah.
Please don't, but.
Yeah, but that's the expectation, to be honest. In July, we might have 1 long meeting. You might say, let's go back to 2 in August. We'll see, right?
Well, Your Worship, the July meeting won't be very long because it's only 2 weeks away, so there won't be that
Good
much.
point. In the
build up.
August-
So it'll be the August meeting that might
The August,
be questionable.
and the September 1st one might be as well, I guess, in essence of that. But this is just July and August is how we're visualizing it. Councilor Harlan had a question wondering which one of the 2 we'd be canceling. Typically, it would be the 2nd meeting of the month, usually just by council, just tradition, we do the 1st Monday of the month.
This will be Tuesday in July.
Right, so our next council meeting
Am I
is July
correct?
4th.
July 4th.
July 4th.
Tuesday.
Always makes it good for our friends at CHCO with bingo going on as well.
Yes.
It's big competition for what are you going to watch. Okay, I'm not seeing any objection to that. Sounds good. Well, thanks, everybody. Those are 2 quick items. So we are now into question period. The audience, I believe, has indicated that they have no questions. Is there anyone online? Or anything submitted, I should say, as well?
I've received nothing through my emails, Your Worship, and there is only 1 person online. So for the 1 person online, if you would like to raise your hand if you have any questions for council. Give me 1 last call. Please raise your hand if you have a question for council. Seeing none, Your Worship.
Perfect. We are going to transition to councillor and deputy mayor's comments. Councillors? Councillor Heenan's kicking off today.
Your Worship and Council, this is part hearsay and part fact, I guess. I've heard there's a planned power outage tomorrow for Water Street. Is that correct?
That is not hearsay, that is correct.
That is correct.
And the pharmacy will be one of the businesses that are impacted. But,
Yes.
Mr. Spear has followed up. Him and I had a conversation. He's reached
Yeah,
out
there's
directly
been
to
a lot
NB
of
Power.
questions. It's really up to NB Power to notify their customers, but I'm to understand they're not. But
Yeah.
from what we think, it's primarily the block that is bordered by Water Street, Queen Street, William Street, and King Street. And both sides of Queen, just the corners of Water. So those on the south of Water and King are affected, but not everybody. So for instance, the town hall, we did get a list today of those expected to be affected, and we didn't notify people directly. It's NB Power's job. As people were calling, we let them know. But NB Power could be like us with our water system, that you turn a valve thinking only one person will be affected, and all of a sudden there's no water in 2 or 3 places. So I guess for those affected, draw water, or potentially affected, I should say, draw water, back up your computers, and it's supposed to hit at 9 o'clock, so be ready for it. That's in the bordering streets, and then if by 9:15 you're doing fine, you're probably good to go.
I think on that note, though, I pulled it up, and it is showing that some homes on Queen, that our addresses are on Queen, will be impacted, William and King, and I assume those are the lower numbers that will be impacted towards the downtown.
Yeah.
But it looks like about roughly 40, would that be safe to say, 30 to 40?
They said 53 customers
53,
are
okay.
affected.
Smaller font than I thought. But they're right before, so in the downtown area. Even if you're on one of those side streets towards the bottom, then you could be. But I do know, talking to one person, that NB Power did contact them, so.
My concern really is the issue that we have no variance over what NB Power does. I understand that, but I just think there could be a more reasonable time when we're in a town that has one drugstore, a main street, and the people are losing their financial, like the Leather House, I'm just going to use as an example, they're losing a full day salary and a full day sales. And with one drugstore, if it's a different community, you have 2. If need be. And I understand we can go to St. Stephen, but there are seniors, and I just find that it's very inconvenient for the citizens and the town to have this during the summer season. And I understand that it's probably very necessary, but necessary could mean like 3 o'clock on or something instead of full day. And I would just like to be known on record that this seems to be quite unfair to the businesses who try to survive in a small town and to people who rely on those businesses and banks, et cetera. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, and I can pass on the concerns to Bob Scott, who is our key account manager for NB Power. The obvious is, if it was residential, you pick 9 to 5, because maybe kids are at school or someone's at work, but the fact that it's for downtown, you almost do the opposite, right? And I understand the time of year, you don't do this in the winter because you don't shut people's power off in the winter, but point taken especially. And again, I know there's businesses that are losing revenue, but in particular, people that need prescriptions are really people that I'm concerned about. Councillor Harlan.
The concern I have is the lack of notice. So we didn't find out about this until today, and that in terms of working from a healthcare perspective, we had no ability to plan with the drugstore around what a contingency plan could be for some people who need medications on an urgent basis. So if we could get some better notification, that would be helpful.
Perfect.
That would mitigate some issues.
We could follow up. I'm not sure the urgency of what this was for, right? So depending, right? So, but we can follow up. Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to talk about this weekend. A couple of big things happened this weekend for a lot of folks as well. Not one of us just was losing to the mayor in a road race, but speaking of that, I just wanted to really call that the volunteers out for the Father's Day 5-mile race that happened on Sunday. It was my first opportunity to run in the race, although you can't really call it running, more limping along well, actually, I do feel that I accomplished something deeply personal that I am proud of when I participated in that race. And I wanted to say that a lot of people even if they weren't in the top 10, 20, 30, or 90 like I was, accomplish something deeply personal when they run a race like that. Participation, or at least a placement, I should say, in the race doesn't equal effort, and everyone put in a considerable amount of effort and accomplished something personal. You could tell by the looks on people's faces when they finished that race that something profound had happened to many of them. And I just wanted to thank the organizers and volunteers for creating an event that allowed people to test themselves in that way and put themselves up against something. And I'm proud of the community for organizing and running an event like that, just as I am proud of the people who were able to participate in that event too. And speaking of Pride, I also want to call out the community for Saturday morning's event and the Pride event that took place on Saturday morning. I was just so humbled by the turnout that came to participate in the Pride March on Saturday morning. I think that the community came out in spades to really show how supportive they are in this community too. And I just was, again, very proud to be a part of that outstanding event. And just thanks Charlotte County Pride and to everybody else that was participated and volunteered and took part in that event. I think it made our town look very, very great and very colorful as well. And I'm certainly proud of the community for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurdle. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Today I attended the graduation for NBCC St. Andrews, and it was a wonderful graduation, and I got to see a lot of the students, to see a lot of Indigenous students there. It was awesome to see, and international students. There will be a National Indigenous Day on this coming Wednesday, which is June 21st. That's always been the National Indigenous Day. And it's from 9 till 3 p.m., 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the Market Square. I do not have an itinerary, but they are doing drumming, they are doing storytelling and explanations about the Beskotomagati people, and food will be served probably around lunchtime. So you can decide what you wish to attend, but it will be in Market Square. The drum workshop I'm going to host on July 2nd. I've had a few cancellations, and I've gone to my lists, and I still have a few cancellations. I have to check tonight, but if you are interested, call my home phone and leave me a message. I can't tell you how many spaces there are because I have commitments that are supposed to get to me by tonight. So when I get home, I'm sure there will be a lot of messages on my phone. But it's my home phone that has a message machine, and it's 1-506-529-3331. Please leave me your name and your number so I can get back to you. It will be $60 per person. We work together, and I thank Mr. Knopper for working with me, and Mr. Spear, the staff, have been very helpful to assist me to put on this workshop here at the W.C. O'Neill Arena on July the 2nd, which is a Sunday, but there are two sessions, 9 to 12 and 1 to 4. And after the afternoon session, we hope to bless all the drums that were done, that we have made. There were 25 done in November, and now there will be 50 more as of July 2nd. So that's approximately 75 drums I hope to see to come for the ceremony and the blessing, and then to be used on Truth and Reconciliation Day, which will be the 30th of September. And we do plan to host a day like we normally do. So that is important. So you can leave me a message on my machine if you are interested in taking the drum workshop. And the last thing I have is that I dial a ride drive, and I know many of you know that I'm very not concerned, but I like to do it, and sometimes there's an opportunity to do some good deed. I was driving because Dial-A-Ride generally goes from early in the morning till about 5 o'clock, But I was driving a young fellow who's trying to change his life around, and so it would be from 4 o'clock to about 7:30 at night. And I was taking him to St. John, bringing him back. And he was very thankful because this will allow him to get his driver's license and improve his life, which is wonderful. I think that's great. He's a student that's graduating, so this will give him opportunities, and glad that Dial-A-Ride could assist him. But this one night, I didn't want to go shopping or do all the things that I do, my errands, because I'd been up 3 times to St. John. So I went to AJ's Lounge, and I'm not advertising for the lounge, and restaurant, but I want to tell you what happened to me, because it's a random act of kindness. Now, I know sometimes I go through Tim Hortons and I get a free coffee. I do that myself. But I was there eating my supper because I was starving, and I went to pay my bill, and the waitress came up to me. She said, "Oh, your bill's been paid. This couple does this to just a person or a couple that they feel that, you know, they'll pay for your meal." And I had no opportunity to say thank you. So I was shocked, not shocked, but I thought that random act of kindness meant a lot to me. I wanted to do it last month when I was, but we had the fire, we had all these other things on my mind. So I didn't do it, but I did tell them to watch CHCO-TV to see, and I wrote a note on the back of the, you know, the placemat, and gave it to the waitress. And they were also very kind, and apparently they do this a lot. I just wanted them to know that it meant a lot to me, and I was shocked because I was thinking of the turmoil in the world, but I wasn't thinking about these random acts of kindness. But I feel that was a really kindness. And then I signed it, Deputy Mayor Kate Akagi from the town of St. Andrews, and the waitress went, "You're the deputy mayor?" And I said, "Yes, I'm the deputy mayor." But I wanted them to know that I would be on council and that I would relate the story. And so if their friends are listening, because I think they know who they are in St. John, I do not. But I know that the next time I went into the restaurant, I asked them if they had received my note, and they said yes. And I said, "Well, apologize. I did not mention it at the first town council meeting. I should have, but I didn't." And I really still want to thank them from the bottom of my heart that this really made an impact. And when I told the young student, he said, "Well, that's, that's a great story." And I said, "Yeah, it is." I said, "It's amazing what people will do when you're out and about." So I just want to thank them. I want to thank the people that always give me a free coffee. I never know who you are because I can't see. But thank you very much. And I think that's it, Your Worship, for me for today.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I don't think you're lobbying for free coffees, though, right? Is that
No.
I'm not hearing that?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Any other member of council? Okay, I just wanted to highlight in my comments, as the Deputy Mayor mentioned, that the New Brunswick Community College had their graduation today. I can confirm that this past Saturday, the Passamaquoddy Children's Center had their preschool graduation. Wednesday at Vincent Massey Elementary School is the grade 5 graduation for those going to middle school, and Thursday is Sir James Dunn Academy graduation. So on behalf of council and staff of the town of St. Andrews, congratulations. And no matter where you go, whether you're going from preschool to VMES or you're going from high school off to college, we're very proud to be part of your foundation. So best of luck to all the grads this year. And at this point, I will be looking for a motion to adjourn. We got we have closed session? I thought we didn't have closed session.
Read your update.
Oh, well, it does say that per section 68(1), yeah. Okay, I thought we checked that we didn't this morning. All right, you threw me through a loop, so
Thanks,
at
Mr.
8:48 p.m., council is moving to go into closed session for the Local Governance Act, Section 68(1)(c), information that could cause financial loss or gain to a person or the local government or could jeopardize negotiations leading to an agreement or contract. I'll be looking for a mover, please. Got Councillor Heenan, seconded by Councillor Gumichel. All in favor of going to closed session, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody, and we'll give a few moments for technology to shut down because that's all that's left in the meeting room. Thank you.